again with the Cheer Up Podcast and my lovely co-host, the great Sherry Swalwell. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Kara. Hi, everybody.
Hi, and we are so glad that you guys are joining us for another episode of the Cheer Up Podcast. So just want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, if you have any questions or you have a comment, just feel free to email us at cheeruppodcast.com. Excuse me, cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. So again, that's cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. This episode, we're going to be talking about, actually, this is episode 2. We started a series on love and relationships. And the previous series, for those who would like to go back and hear it, is First Love, and how God is our first love. And it's based off the scripture of Revelations 2:4, and how to make God your first love, and like everyday decisions and practical ways to just make sure that God is our first love. So if you guys want to go back and check that, please feel free to do so. Just click on a website or the links or whatnot, and we'll make sure that that's available for you to get to quickly and easily. This one is going to be about love between the spouses. So, and if you're a Christian single, and you're just like, oh my goodness, really, it's going to be about marriage and everything else. And if you're happily single and you're content being single and you're just loving life being single, then please just continue to listen, because maybe this could be an episode that you can share with your married friends or your friends who are currently engaged and things like that. Or you may just hear something that if marriage may even sometime be in your future, just something that maybe you could take notes on or whatnot. So this episode is for everybody. So if you're single or if you're married, this episode is for everybody. So again, this one is episode 2. It's about husbands. And please make sure to tune in next week as well, because that one is going to be about the relationships between parents and children, and how love flows all through that, and what should be expected and what shouldn't be expected. So again, and if you want to sign up for our email list, just send your name and your email to cheeruppodcast@gmail.com, and we will add you to our email list. Again, that's cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. To begin this episode, I would like to start off with a definition of love. And it's a definition from the Webster Dictionary of 1828. And they were quite wordy back then, so I'm just going to kind of sum it up, but you guys will be able to find it. Again, it's the Webster 1828 Dictionary. It says, in a general sense, to be pleased with, to regard with affection, on account of some qualities which excite pleasing sensations or desire of gratification. The Christian loves his Bible. In short, we love whatever gives us pleasure and delight, whether animal or intellectual. And if our hearts are right, we love God above all things. As the sum of all excellence and in all the attributes which can communicate happiness to intelligent beings. In other words, the Christian loves God with the love of complacency in his attributes, the love of benevolence towards the interests of his kingdom, and the love of gratitude for favors received. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. I just wanted to include that because I just think that is such an excellent description of love. And it just reminds us that God is our first love, true love, and it's also type of love, desires and excitement and pleasant pleasures that come with loving another human being. And also this particular topic, we are going to be talking about spouses, husbands, wives, husbands and wives, and how to relate to each other, and just the love and the how love flows through those relationships, and the different intricacies that can be involved in each. What do you think, Sherry?
I absolutely loved that definition. I love the fact that it was in the dictionary, first and foremost.
Right? I love it.
Yes, I love how it talked about God being the first love in the dictionary. And it was such a beautiful definition. it flows so well with what we talked about last week, what we're going to talk about again this week. And as I was sitting here listening to you say that we were going to talk about spouses, husbands and wives, I thought, maybe we should have invited our husbands to come, because we're a little lopsided since we're both females. But I don't know about you, but in our family, I'm the talker, and thankfully, we do not have the same personalities, because I would drive him crazy if he had my personality. So thankfully, he has a much more calm, patient personality, and he puts up with all of my quirks. But so yes, so I say that in jest, but I think it would have been kind of funny if we had a male perspective as well. So maybe we'll have to do that next year or in a future episode. But
that would be fun. Yes.
Yeah, so. Wouldn't it? So
I know.
I'm excited about today's. I've always wanted to be a wife and a mother. That's always been in second grade, I had what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was a housewife. I was a wife and a mother. I wanted to grow my own vegetables. I wanted to have about 1,000 kids. So marriage, romance, parenting, all of those things are just so near and dear to my heart. And I think no matter where you're at in life, whether you are career oriented, whether you are house oriented, whether you are marriage oriented, whether you are single oriented, I think that that those of you who find yourselves married, find yourselves in a marriage relationship, it takes a lot of work. It's hard work, but it's so rewarding. And I've always said, I can either work hard offensively or I can work hard defensively. I would rather work hard keeping something running well than always working hard trying to fix it. So
absolutely, yes.
So I entered into marriage and I entered into parenting with that mindset. Have I done it well all the time? Absolutely not. But my mindset and my heart has always been, work hard at keeping the problems out,
yes,
instead of working hard to fix the problems after the fact.
And that's a good, I love the way you said that, working offensively or defensively. And I think the key to that is, and probably Sherry and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago in one of the previous podcasts, but both of us are married. We've both been married almost 30 years. But at least I'm close to 30 years. I think I'm closer to 30 years than she may be, but yeah. So it's like, so
we're almost the same age, but yet she's a little bit further ahead of me. So I am always asking her for wisdom.
So, and it's just one of those things that, and so with that, so we're coming from it from a perspective of not necessarily newly married women, but those who have kind of sort of, to use today's vernacular, been there, done that. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You would be surprised at the things that you could come across in 3 decades or more. Mm-hmm. Because we both know our spouse for years or whatnot, before we got married. So, and you just be surprised at the things that you can come across and things like that. So that's kind of the perspective that we're coming from.
And
not we both really married. Yes, go ahead, Sherry.
And we both have older children too. Like I have middle school, high school, and college. Hers are out of college, correct? They're both out of college?
Yes. Both of my boys are out of college. Yes. And
so we have that perspective. We have that perspective also, where we have we've done the at home, staying up late with the feedings, the middle school, the high school, all of those. We're either in the midst of it or we have the experience that we've gleaned from it. So, and I say that, obviously we'll talk more about that next week, but when you have marriage and you have kids involved in marriage, you can't not talk about children when you're talking about marriage, because it's a family unit. And I love the fact that we decided to do, to talk about this love and relationship series with the biblical hierarchy. God is first and foremost, then our husbands are next above our children. then our children are above every other relationship that we have in our life, whether it's coworkers, extended family, siblings, friends, all of those people in our lives. When you do it in the biblical hierarchy, when you give the respect and the honor in that order, everything flows much better. It's coming at it from an offensive direction versus a defensive direction. It helps stop problems that could start because you're keeping things in the order that God designed it in. And there's a reason why he designed it that way. Like, he doesn't do it to punish anybody. He does it because he loves us.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of contention among Christians and non-Christians alike kind of began. They're like, oh, that biblical hierarchy stuff. Oh, that was so many centuries ago. Now, wives being submitted to their husbands and everything like that. That is so last century or centuries ago, and it's just not relevant today. And back then, women had to be submissive to their women had to be submissive to their husbands because that was the only thing that they could do. It wasn't like they had a choice. And that's not the case, and you go back and you research the scriptures and you can see that. And in today, in today's society, as Christians and in the New Testament, you see that type of structure is still heavily emphasized. And the reason it is emphasized like that, and Sherry and I both go into more detail about this in the book Marriage Matters that I was a contributing author with there, and we will put the link, below the podcast or whatnot, so you guys can click on it. We kind of go into more detail necessarily about that, but there's a reason for it. And I just think over the years, the word submissiveness has just gotten a bad reputation.
Absolutely.
I think it has gotten such a bad reputation to where it's something that is frowned upon, looked down negatively upon, and you're less of a person than you could be if you're submissive and you're letting the man make all the decisions. And why do that? There's this, men always try to keep us down, and you're just promoting that type of rhetoric. No.
I'd like to interrupt for 1 minute, and I want to read to them. I want to read to everybody what it says in the Bible, and then I want you to piggyback on that, because submission and respect and honor, the way it is written in the Bible, is far from weak. It is, yes. You have to be a strong person in order to have that respect and submission and honor that God is asking you to have. So let me read it from the Bible. It's found in Ephesians 5, 22 through 33. And then Kara can explain a little bit more about, maybe even it start with how you do it in your life, examples that you have in your life, and I'll piggyback on that with examples of how I do it in my life. It's just a everyday choice. Basically, submission is a choice, and that choice brings strength, and you have strength in that choice. It's not a defeatist, roll over on your back, whatever you say, do it to me type of attitude. It's we're teammates. I'm your teammate. I'm your helpmate. I'm choosing to submit to you, and I'm choosing to trust that you will respect me and love me the way that God makes you. So there's commands for both the husband and the wife to work together from God. So I'll be quiet and read it, and then let Kara talk. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh and his bones. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is the great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So if you hear it like that, the husbands actually have more responsibility than us wives. We may have to submit to them, but they have to love us as their own bodies.
They do. And actually, the more they have more of a burden than the women could ever even think about. It's just more of a responsibility for them. And it's more of a responsibility on them. And actually, I'm perfectly okay being a helpmate and submitting from that point of view. But again, just to be clear for those who may not understand it, Christ is our Lord and Master and the creator of the world, the universe, and everybody in it, not our husbands. We do not worship our husbands. That God first, okay? It's not like we worship our husbands in that type of way. No, it's God first. God is the only God. Our husbands are not our savior. They do not have that type of redemptive power. They just can't do that. However, they are ordained by God, as Sherry just read in the scriptures, to be the spiritual leadership of our home. And if they are applying that type of spiritual leadership biblically, the way Sherry just read it through the scriptures, then as a wife, you want to. It's your desire. It's a privilege to want to submit to them because they are submitting, they are leading as God is teaching them to lead, ministering to them to lead your family. And as that, you're coming alongside and helping them, submitting in that honorable and respectful way. And sometimes that means when you may think A, he thinks B, and you just can't come to a conclusion, submit to that leadership. That's what we're talking about, particular type of situations an example of what's going on in those type of situations. And it's not just like Sherry mentioned earlier, bowing down and just like, he tells you go do something unscriptural and you just go and do it. That is not what we're talking about. This is talking about a man who is being spiritually led to lead his family by God. That is what we're talking about here. And we are fully aware that there are some people who are married to spouses that are unbelievers. And that's a totally different story. And maybe we'll do a podcast and episode on that, actually, which actually now that I'm thinking about it would be a good idea. And things like that. So that's, you have to approach that type of situation differently. But for this particular episode, we're talking about submitting to those who are in authority because they are following the authority.
I want to piggyback on that, Kara. When you talk about husbands who may not be believers, if it's still a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship overall, then yes, what kind of an amazing testimony, I should say, would it be that you as a believer submit to your husband in areas where it lines up with God? So he may not be a believer, but say he's asking you to submit. We'll use the example of you want to buy a red car. He wants to buy a blue car. They both fit in your budget. I don't know why he wants to buy the blue one. Maybe it has the really cool gadgets or something, and you want one that's more practical. But submitting to his choice is not going to be an unbiblical decision. God is not going to be displeased because he's not putting you in debt and he's not, asking unrealistic things. But what kind of an amazing testimony would you give if you said, I choose to submit to you because you are my husband. I choose to submit to you as leader of our house. That, in my opinion, would draw him over time, maybe not right then particularly, but over time, if you're respectful, if you're, if you're biblically giving him that leadership role that God has appointed to him in the areas that you can, because you're not disobeying God by doing it. I just want to throw that question out there for everybody and say, in what way, even if you have a non-believing spouse, what ways can you biblically submit to them as a testimony, as a witness, as a way to show them to Christ because you're showing the love of Christ? just a question to throw out there to ponder.
And actually, that's a really good. I'm glad that you added that, because it's through that particular spouse, in a case where it's the husband is the unbelieving spouse and the wife is a believer. That's excellent what you just added, because what a testimony that will be. And actually, you're testifying and being a witness to him about the gospel just by doing that. Just by doing that. Again, if what he's asking you to do, and if like Sherry said, as long as it's not unbiblical and unscriptural and things like that, and then you kind of just like, okay, I'll go with your decision, and the opportunity is going to eventually rise itself to where he's going to ask, why are you doing that? Why did you just go ahead and do that? And what a testimony you could give to him. They may scoff at first and go, well, I don't believe. And he goes, it doesn't matter. I do. And because of that, to prevent an argument, I'm just going to go here, and just kind of side with you on this one. And the more you're doing that out of love,
absolutely,
the more he is going to be drawn to that. Believe me, it's a tried and true method. So I'm so glad that she put it out there. And I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. Obviously, it depends on that spouse's personality, their temperament, whatever history they have with God and and other things. But if you fight the good fight and you keep going and you don't give up, what a testimony that will be. And actually the same can be said for the opposite, where the husband may be a believer but the wife is not. If you continue to treat her like God is instructing you to teach her as he ministers to you and your family, and to minister to her out of love through your actions and your words and leadership, she can't help but be drawn to that.
Absolutely.
It's going to happen. Again, we're not saying that it's a miracle type thing, but it's going to happen. And they are going to be drawn to that. And they are going to be able to, once they see that you're just not talking the talk, you're actually walking the walk, then that's a completely different scenario. And most people are looking for Christians to be hypocrites. But if you're doing the walking and the talking at the same time, that's something that a wife can't help but admire. And that's
Agreed.
going to draw them closer to you. And again, like Sherry said, it's just a different practical way. She used the car examples, like she wants something more practical. He wants something more technological and with all the gadgets and everything else. And if you've been married for any length of time or bought a car with your spouse, you know how that is. You've probably had that conversation more than once, But it's different things like that. And it's also in parenting, you may say, no, child A broke the rules. He has got to pay he broke the rules and he has to do this, and this. Your husband may be that way. He's more like, no, he's got to face the consequences. And, as a mom, you may be like, oh, but I just think it'd be a little bit too harsh. Can't we just kind of help them out here? And you're going to go back and forth. But in the end, trust his leadership that God is ministering to him to lead your family. You trust it. Even our mom's hearts are like, oh no, I don't want him to face the consequences. What can I do to help? Mommy's here. I'm going to help you in this situation. And, he may be no, with actions come consequences. And even though they may be harsh, he has to deal with them. And even though our hearts may be aching and crying, we cannot go against that, because as he's being led by God, that is what he's being told to do. And in the long run, that's going to be a blessing to your child. And that is something that you, of course, you and your husband discuss in private, but you eventually have to come along on the same side. You can't be saying one way and then your husband saying another way, because then that just breeds confusion in your child. And of course, he's going to take the easier way out.
Well, and I want to piggyback on that, because we have a saying in our house with our kids: God is the big, big boss, and I am the boss. Meaning, I am the one that's home with them more often than he is. I'm the one, I work from home, especially with 2020 and the whole virtual learning, hybrid learning. I am with our children way more than he is, just for time factors. And I will give them directions. I will tell them what to do. He has confidence in me. We have the same parenting styles, but things come up. I will, say one thing, and sometimes our lines get crossed and he will say something else. He and I will then talk afterwards, if they were separate or different, in the privacy of our bedroom. And more often than not, it's a lack of communication. It was a misunderstanding. It was I thought that you had said X. I thought that he meant Y. And we can come back together much more easily. Sometimes he and I have very different opinions. I think that we need to be stricter. He thinks we need to show more grace. I think we need to show more grace. He thinks we need to be stricter. In those cases, I trust him and I say, I don't agree. I think we should do this, but I trust your opinion. I trust your leadership. We will go with what you say. So, and our kids just know we are never going to tell them to do anything that God would not have us do, and that we would not tell them to do anything that was not biblically sound. I also wanted to bring up, we talked about the unbelieving spouse. And I think even with the believing spouse, when we both are believers versus when the relationship is a little more unbalanced and one is a believer and one is not a believer, choosing to submit is huge. And we also, both of us, all of us, one of the best helpmate characteristics that we can do, habits that we can do, daily disciplines that we can do, is not only sometimes pray with our spouse if you're comfortable. Not every couple is comfortable doing that, but praying for our spouse. And the prayer is not, the prayer is not change my husband to make him be X, Y, and Z. My mom, before I even got married, years and years and years ago, my mom gave me the best advice. And the prayer is, God, make my husband the man, because I'm the wife, the man that you want him to be. Take your hands completely off and just say, God, make him the man, help him to become the man that you want him to be, and help me to become the woman, the wife, the mother, the friend, the coworker, the family member that you want me to be. When we work and focus more on who we are and who God wants us to be, and less on how we want our spouse to change, it just brings such unity and such, God then can really work.
He can. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it takes the selfishness out, and it opens up the door wide open for God to do what only God can do. And isn't that honestly what we really want? Don't we want God to bless our marriage? Don't we want God to be front and center in our marriage? If we have a biblical marriage, that should be our number one goal. So if we get ourselves out of the way and give him the room and the opportunity to do what only he can do, it goes right along with that offensive versus defensive. You're working to keep problems out instead of trying to always fix problems. That gets tiring.
Oh, yes, it gets tiring because then you're in a mode of reaction.
Exactly.
You're just constantly reacting to a particular situation. But if you're praying for your spouse and you're loving on your spouse, and like Sherry mentioned, just praying that God makes him into the man that God has designed him to be, you're doing exactly what you need to do. You are helping him. And sometimes that is not always easy, because there may be people who have difficult spouses, and so again, it goes back to that submission is not an easy thing. It is not coming from a weak stance or anything. It's saying, I am going to do this because I'm going to be offensive in my marriage, because I desire a biblical marriage. And if this is what I have to do to get it, then this is what I'm going to do. And it is not easier. Easy would be throwing up your hands and saying, I'm done. I'm tired of you and I'm leaving. I can't deal with this anymore, but staying and just really trying to work it out and having that more submissiveness type attitude, again, as, just praying for them. And, as God continued to minister to them and everything, it's just, to me, that's just awesome. And not only are you, if there are children involved, you're not just really bringing him closer to the Lord or helping him, and to develop a relationship with Christ, but your children are watching.
Absolutely. And all I can say, and the encouragement that I want to offer today is, regardless of where your marriage is on that continuum, that line, do you trust God to restore and redeem
and rebuild?
Yes. because
Mhm.
that is who he is. He is our redeemer, our restorer, our rebuilder. If we take our hands off and we genuinely say, God, help, I need your help with my marriage. I want to live the biblical marriage that you designed. I want to be in a marriage where I can be offensive instead of defensive. I want to be in a marriage where I can biblically submit, and I'm submitting to a husband who chooses biblical things for our family, biblical leadership. If you take your hands off, you surrender, and you say, God, I need you to fix this, he will. And we're talking about healthy relationships. We're not talking about violence. We're not talking about
Yes.
abuse. We're
Yes.
not talking about the unhealthy um, relationships where you might need more intervention. You might need somebody to come in and help you. So please, please, if you're in a dangerous situation, get help. We're not licensed um, counselors, so get help. Like, get the help that you need to be safe and for your children to be safe. We're talking about healthy relationships that you want to build and make better.
And take to the next level spiritually.
Exactly. And
Yes.
when you do it spiritually, then you're also taking it to the next level emotionally and physically and psychologically and all those other areas too. When you focus on God and make him your number one priority, then it just blesses the entire relationship, not just the spiritual aspect of it.
It blesses the entire relationship. And before you know it, that husband or wife that you found so annoying and or frustrating, all of a sudden you're enjoying them. You're enjoying their company. You're enjoying their presence before you can wait for them to get out the door. Because it wasn't that, there was a lot of argument or whatever. It was just that you were constantly just on a different page with things, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's just, just you're on a different page with things. He said red, you say blue. You want up, he goes down. And so sometimes, and we're the opposite sex, so obviously we're not going to just agree on everything. And sometimes you're just like, oh my goodness, can he just leave and go to work? Or I can't get out of here fast enough to go with my girlfriends. So obviously, we're all going to have situations like that. Again, she said it, she mentioned before, in healthy relationships, you're going to have those type of situations. But as long as we keep God first and we focus on him first and let God do the work, she was just, I can't remember exactly how Sherry put it, but she just basically saying, get out of the way.
Exactly. Exactly.
Get out of the way and let God minister to that spouse. And while that is happening, you love on them, you cherish them, you appreciate them. And sometimes it's just showering love on them. And
I want to
sometimes,
give one practical application for that showering love that you just said. One practical application that we can do starting today is just a simple prayer. God, how can I bless my spouse today? Let me open my eyes to one particular thing, one thing I can do that will bless them, put a smile on their face, make them happy. It can be something as simple as going and picking up. In our house, my husband loves frozen Cokes. So if I'm out and about, or I'm at not the grocery store, if I'm at the gas station, I will run in and grab him a frozen Coke. I'll come home, I'll put it in the freezer, and then he'll have something when he gets home from a long day of work. Other times it's sitting and watching TV with them. Other times it's taking a walk with them. Whatever is your spouse's love language or what fills them up. Just one simple prayer. God, what can I do today that will show my spouse how much I love them, that will fill my spouse up, that will bring me closer to my husband? One simple prayer, and you'll be amazed. And I have a feeling that if you do that on a regular basis, it's going to turn into 2 things, 3 things, 4 things.
oh,
It's going to change the atmosphere in your house.
and again, that goes back to being offensive in your marriage instead of defensive.
Exactly.
You're thinking ahead. You're thinking ahead of time. It's like, if your husband has a day off or something, you go, you know what? My husband's a breakfast guy. I think I'm just going to get up like an hour early, even though I'd rather snuggle in bed and, cook breakfast. Or maybe he works really hard and has really long hours or whatnot, and just usually goes out and buys his lunch. How awesome would it be for him to wake up one morning and you have his lunch already there and ready and waiting for him, and so that would be an awesome thing as well. One of the things one of the things that I really did was that my husband I used to do many years ago, when he would take lunches, is that when I would make his lunch is put notes inside, little love notes, so that when he would open it up or whatnot, and it wouldn't be nothing long, dramatic, poetic, flowery. It would just be a quick sentence or two, or something that may have related to the day before, the night before, or something that morning. Just something that's in there to let him know that, hey, I'm thinking about you. That really mattered. That meant a lot to me, or something like that. And I think one of the most unconventional things for me, because it takes me a while to be creative to think of things like this, was that I remember one day just taking a tube of lipstick before my husband got up for work one morning. And I took it and I went into the bathroom mirror and I just drew like a big heart on the mirror. And I wrote like, I love you, and everything else all on the mirror. So that when he got up to get ready for work, it would be like the first thing that he would see. And just silly, little, crazy, romantic things like that, I think can just really just let them know that, hey, you matter, you're important to me, and just little surprises like that. So, but we would love to.
Yeah, and I love the invention of text. I can text my husband a short little something that means nothing to anybody else, but it means something to the two of us in the middle of the day to let him know I'm thinking of him. Or sometimes it's hard for women. I am better at writing down versus speaking. Believe it or not, I'm much better with written words than I am with verbal words. And I think that most men really love to be appreciated for what they do.
Yes.
I don't think that they get the appreciation that women get overall in society. And if it's hard for you to say it out loud, then text it to them. Say, thank you so much for X. When you did Y, that really filled me up. That really took a load off. That really showed me that you loved me. That really, it was just so overwhelmingly kind. Whatever you want to say. I mean, you say it the way.
Unexpected. It put a smile on my face. Thank you for doing that.
Yes. I think they really, really love to be appreciated, just like we do. I mean, how many times do we like being told thank you for making dinner? Like, it's our job. We make dinner all the time or most of the time, unless you're teaching your children how to cook and then you let them practice.
Yes.
but I mean, when we get thanked for something like that, like, that's huge. Think about it from your husband's perspective. How much are you going to fill him up, whether he explains or admits it or not? It's going to put a bounce in his step. It's going to help him to realize that he's not just taken advantage of, whether you've ever given that impression or not. Everybody likes to be appreciated. Everybody. So it's just those little things, like Kara said. And it puts fun into the relationship. I have so many problems with being way too serious. I need to be taught how to have fun and how to bring fun into my marriage and into my parenting. Believe it or not, I really need help with that. And it helps bring the fun.
And to me, the best medicine for any marriage is laughter.
Yes.
You have got to laugh.
Not at each other, though. Not at each other.
No. With each other. With each other. Just practice being silly together. Just like you mentioned before, just things that you and him know about, and things like that. And just being silly, and just quit taking life and or your marriage sometimes just so seriously. Sometimes, nothing can strengthen. Laughter is just one of those things that I just think can strengthen a marriage in so many different ways.
Oh, I agree. Yes.
It is just one of those things that can do it, and just practice laughing and just having fun and giggling. And you may think, oh, I'm not the giggling type. I'm not the laughing type. Well, start. Because not only is it good for your marriage, it's good for you.
Well, and that's the thing. Yes. I am so laser focused during the week. I have so many things that I have to do, and I have such a tight schedule. And I'm like, if somebody interrupts my X, then it takes care of my whole Y, Z, A, B, C, and D. I'm so laser focused that I forget. I have to literally remind myself regularly, I do not exist for other people. Marriage is one of the blessings that God has given me. Parenting is one of the blessings God has given me. I want to enjoy it to the fullest. I don't want to wait till the weekend to enjoy it. I want to enjoy
Right.
the fact that I get to wake up with my husband every morning, that I get to
Yeah.
go to sleep with my husband every night. I don't want to be like, oh, sorry, got to go to bed because I have to get up super early tomorrow. You know what? An extra 15 minutes or a half an hour spending time enjoying him, enjoying time together with him is going to pay tenfold down the road than just living quote unquote separate lives during the week to come together on the weekend. And we don't do that. Like we're a family that's together a lot, but I'm also laser focused. I used to work every night, honestly, and then I backed it down to about 2 nights a week. And now lately I have been pushing away from the computer, and after dinner, I might have to do 10, 15 minutes of something, a half an hour of something, but I'm not there for hours. And I choose to go spend time with my kids and my husband. And it makes a world of difference. Am I behind on stuff? Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? I'm always going to be behind on stuff. That's okay. I'm spending time, I'm investing in the people that I love. I'm investing in the memories, and I'm investing in the talents and the gifts that God has given me, which is my marriage and my children. And I will never regret that. I always ask myself, I say, when I'm on my deathbed, what will this, whatever it is, matter? Will it matter that I spent the evenings with my husband? Absolutely, it will. Will I remember even what the assignment was that I was working on? Absolutely not.
No. No. And it won't matter in the long run. You know,
Exactly.
people matter, and people over projects always, when it's allowable. Now, obviously,
Agreed.
I know with certain jobs and with certain things like that, like if you're on call and things like that, obviously those type of things, you learn to adjust to and deal with. With your spouse and things. But when you have the opportunity, and if it's not a life-threatening situation,
Absolutely.
people,
Well,
yes.
well, even with the on call, both my husband and I have had it throughout our different lives. At one point it was me, and now it's him. And when you make the other person your priority 90% of the time, you are so much more flexible with that 10% when the job
Yes.
has to usurp it, because you know
Yes.
that you're still more important, and that they are working because they love you. They're working to provide for you. They're not working because they want to get away from you.
And that if they had the choice, that they would stay and be
Agreed.
with you, because
Agreed.
you've already built that reputation within your marriage. And so
Agreed.
you're okay with them having to run out and do something, because like, oh, that's fine, that's okay. We'll just pick up when when you come back, or we'll
Absolutely.
do it tonight or something like that, because you don't feel like you're always getting the end of the, that you're getting what's left over from them.
And that goes right back.
Yes.
That goes right back
Yes.
to Ephesians 5, where you are submitting to your husband, letting him be the leader,
Yes.
the biblical leader, and he is loving and cherishing you as Christ loved and cherished the church. It all goes back
Absolutely.
full circle.
And I just want to tie up in here that I was going to say ladies, but actually this goes for spouses. As for me, I do not want anybody else to compliment my husband more than I do.
Amen.
Okay. No one else is ever going to be able to do that. I never want him to be in a position to say, oh, well, my wife never told me that. Or, well, she never says this, or she never does that. No. Okay. Because no one's going to out compliment the love of, my husband more than I do. And I think with husbands, it should be the same way. No one should out compliment your wife more than you do. If someone tells them, oh, you look nice today, they should just take it with ease and absorb it, because they know that, because you tell them that all the time. If someone say, oh, you're kind, you're such a sweet spirit, or something like that, then that should be echoing what you have already told them over and over and over and over again. So it's just getting to the habit, because not only does your wife and spouse feel appreciated, they feel loved, they feel treasured. They know that you honestly mean exactly what you say and everything that you do. So just practice complimenting your spouse. just one way or another, whether it be something from, hair to feet, or anything. Oh, those are some cute sandals, or, oh, your hair looks nice today, honey, or I like that new cut that you have, or, oh, your beard looks really nice today. Or something like that. Or like she mentioned earlier, thank you for doing this, this, and that, because that just really blessed me today. So let them not be a stranger to your compliments. Never. Let them already know that you cherish and appreciate them for who they are and for what they do. And I just kind of want to throw that in there. And, ladies, and how do you guys feel? Women, how do you feel about the whole submission aspect of it? Do you still feel like it's just, you're coming from a weak position? Or do you feel like it takes a lot of guts, grit, strength, and spiritual maturity to actually be able to walk in submissiveness? How do you guys show love to your spouses? We would honestly love to know, because there are just so many cute and creative ideas and things out there. And there may be someone that's scrolling through and going, oh, my husband would love that. I think I'm just going to surprise him today, do something like that. So please feel free to put in there anything that you want to share, add, talk, comment about. If you have a private question, again, cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. Sherry, would you like to add anything?
I would. I want to ask too. I think that Kara and I together could talk about marriage for hours and hours and hours. Like I said, it's a passion of mine. I love to encourage people about marriage. I love being married. I feel like it is a huge blessing and a huge just a favor from God to have the opportunity to be married and to have a biblical marriage and to raise children. So my question to all of you is, are there any other topics about marriage that you would like us to cover? Is there anything that we talked about today that really resonates with you? Were you listening and you were like, oh, I really wish that they had talked about this, or I'm really struggling with this? If there are other topics about marriage that you would like to have us talk about from a biblical perspective, granted, we're not saying we're experts by any means. We're just saying that at almost 30 years of marriage and 25 years of marriage, we walked the road a little bit. We haven't walked everything, but we're more than happy, and we would love to encourage and share with you about our journeys and hear about your journeys. So if there's anything else that you guys would like to talk about regarding marriage, let us know, and we will have a future episode about that. Next week, come back. Our next episode is going to be about parenting. And parenting, again, encompasses marriage, or if you're a single parent, it encompasses how to be a single parent, how to parent biblically. And again, we're not sitting here preaching at you. We're not telling you that this is how you have to do it. We are pointing you back to God. We are pointing you back to the encouragement of God's word. We're pointing you back to talking to him and having that relationship with him, and making sure that we're doing things his way, because his way is always best. And when we seek him with all of our heart, he will show up, he will show off, and he will be so personal and so unique that it will just knock your socks off. That is the God that I know. That is the God I serve. And that's the God that we want to share with you. And I say I serve and I love, but I know Kara does too. So it's a yes. double blessing.
I know what you meant.
So
I just want to interrupt for a minute, Sherry. Again, we talked a lot, and we've tossed around the phrase biblical marriage several times. If you want to know more about it, please pick up the Marriage Matters book. Again, we will try to put the link down here, and it just kind of explains it on a lot more detail than we could cover in this allotted amount of time. So again, it's called Marriage Matters. You can find it on Amazon. Am I right, Sherry?
Yep.
Yeah, and under Sherry Swalwell, Marriage Matters, Sherry Swalwell. So again, if you just want to get more into it and say, what are they talking about? I have no idea what they're talking about. You get the book, and it'll explain it a lot more in detail. Okay, I'm done.
And there are 12 couples that share their story in that book. So it's not just Kara and I. You will get 10 other perspectives of biblical marriage. And I guarantee you, while they all have similarities, they are all very different. They've gone through different experiences, had different journeys, but yet it all boils down to a biblical marriage does not look like X, Y, and Z. it looks like a whole gamut of things. But when we put Christ in the middle and Christ first, that's when things blossom. So if you want to check out Kara and all of the wonderful things she has on her website, go to kararhunt.com, KARARHUNT.com. If you want to check out the things on my website and you want to see the books that I have that you're interested in, SherrySwalwell.com, CHERISWALWELL.com. And again, if you need prayer, if you need encouragement, if you want to share your story, if you want to just talk to us and get to know us better and let us get to know you, head over to cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being part of this again. And remember, John 16:33, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. We can't wait to see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.